Hi, I'm Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. Thanking you for checking out this Parents and Caregiver series brought to you by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative. Hi, I'm Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. Mental health encompasses our emotional health, cognitive health, and relationships. In short, mental health is essential, and as such, it's worth advocating for. It's entirely possible that you can be the advocate or the champion within your own family. Every family needs a mental health advocate, and we at Brother Be Well feel very strongly about that statement. And yet, many don't know what mental health advocacy really means. It's actually a profession, for instance, and we'll talk about that in a second, and a career path that one could follow. But it's also a mindset or a way of living that can be employed by anyone in your family, including you. Having an advocate within the family can make all of the difference in the world to a loved one battling mental illness. During this conversation, we'll talk about mental health advocacy, and we're going to talk about it with one of my buddies, Dr. Carlos Martinez, an associate marriage and family therapist with one of our value production partners, HearYou.org. Dr. Carlos Martinez, Dr. C, how's it going?
Good, Mike. Thanks. Good seeing you.
Really good to see you. Let's get into this. I've been waiting to talk to you about it. How would you describe a mental health advocate, Dr.
Mm.
Carlos?
That's a good question. I would say mental health advocates a hero. They're fighting that fight, and they don't get a lot of recognition for it. They don't have a cape and all that stuff that goes with it. So, a mental health advocate is someone who, like you said, they can share their mental health struggles with other people, or they can fight for those who are having their own share of issues and help them walk through that system.
And I love the way you put it. You probably, if you look behind me, the hero. I don't know if you came up with that one because you see my backdrop. That resonates with me, and I think it's pretty powerful because they can do that and we'll talk about this a little bit later, as silently or as loudly as is comfortable for them. Right? They can figure
Yeah.
out where they fit and what their lane is. We'll talk about that in just a second. Perhaps more than anything else, Dr. Carlos, mental health advocates are the foil of stigma. And as we know, stigma has really set up shop in our society and especially in communities of color.
Mhm.
Why is it so important from your perspective that we remove stigma from the equation and not allow it to have a home in our families and communities?
Yeah, I mean, stigma in general. I mean, to be honest, it's isolating, right? When there's a mental health issue, or even when there's people who are different from the community, those people tend to be isolated. There's a stigma. It's stigmatic. So whether it's a mental health issue, a medical issue, color of your skin, whoever you pray to, or even a career, what you do for a job, it can be stigmatizing. Even for me as a therapist, if I can share a quick story. My wife and I, we're meeting with some friends out of state. They bring another couple. We're all just hanging out, having some Dr. Peppers and water and some great fancy cheeses and crackers. And we're catching up. They're introducing us to the other couple, and our friends sit here and say, "Carlos, congratulations on your doctorate. Oh my gosh, great job." And the husband next to us says, "Oh yeah, doctorate in what? Oh, this guy is a therapist. He's got his doctorate." And all of a sudden, the guy who was sitting next to me, having a great conversation, he just shuts his mouth. And it finally came out like, "Oh no, no, I'm going to close my mouth because I know about you therapists, and every time I talk, you're analyzing me." And there was a stigma. He didn't joke around after that. He did, there was no conversation. He was stoic. He was like an oak tree, didn't even move. So even with that, there's a stigma. So it's not, mental health, career, color skin, glasses, no glasses, hair, no hair. There's stigma, and it isolates us from people. And as being humans, we need to be around people.
Wow, that's such a story. And at first, I thought you were going to say he was joking, but if he shut down, he was completely
Yeah,
serious.
yeah,
He
he
was
was.
nervous about being around you and didn't want to talk. Wow. Let's talk about mental health advocacy as a career path. I've just learned that it's a career path. There's an
Mm,
organization here in Sacramento, in Northern California, where Brother Be Well is housed, called Cal Voices, and they employ several. If you happen to be interested, you're listening to this or watching, go to calvoices.org. That's CALVOICES.org, and you can find out if they've got mental health advocate positions posted right now. The question for you, Dr. Carlos, I'm wondering about in your work as an associate marriage and family therapist, do you work directly with mental health advocates? And if so, what's the nature of that interaction? If you
yeah,
could kind of walk us through that, because you're both working toward the same goal. So I'm just curious about how you
right.
work with that person.
Right, right. So there's different types of advocates, right? There's legislative, there's the organizational advocates, and then there's the self advocates. So in my experience as an associate marriage and family therapist, I've worked with the self advocates. So the clients, right? Someone has an issue, they have a concern, they set up an appointment, they come to me or people like me, and we work through their problems. They're advocating for themselves to feel better, get better, sound better. Self disclosure, in my full time job, I'm doing this therapy job part time. In my full time job, I'm a first responder, specifically a police officer. Got almost 18 years of service under my belt. I did about 8 years working a patrol aspect. And since then, I've been working in mental health crisis, specifically the admin side. So I'm on steering committees with people from local hospitals, local school districts, local community mental health centers. And even though we all have different perspectives, we all have different underlying missions within our organization, we're all fighting for that bigger mission in providing better mental health care, and in my case, mental health diversion to consumers of services. So we all come from different backgrounds. It can be frustrating, right? Because we all want a piece of the pie. But at the end of the day, we all come back and say, hey, we're fighting, we're advocating for the consumer.
Just as a bit of an aside, Dr. Carlos, we've talked on this platform about police officers, and thank you for your service to the community, by the way.
Thank you.
We've talked about police officers being called via 911 to respond to mental health emergencies, but traditionally, most police officers aren't trained in how to handle a mental health emergency.
Yeah.
And so it's so great to hear that there's going to be someone in the system, so to speak, like you. You'll know both sides of that puzzle, and you can, down the road, I don't know, you could help train or coach at least, or mentor other police officers and
Right.
help prepare them for the inevitable. So hats off
Well,
to you, man.
thank
That's
you
some
so
great
much.
work
Thank you
that
so
you're doing.
much. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm not the only one. There are others out there like me. So thank you
That,
again.
that- that's fantastic. Let's talk about some of the details, drill a little deeper into this mental health
Hmm.
advocacy stuff. According to the National Association on Mental Illness, or NAMI, you don't have to share your deepest, darkest secret on social media to be a mental health advocate. And anyone on social media, 'cause we all know those people, right? You don't have to do that to be an advocate. You can share your story very privately, just friend to friend, with a neighbor, with a loved one, or you don't have to share it at all yet if you're not ready to share it yet. If you don't mind, Dr. Carlos, can you share the process, the first steps of becoming a mental health advocate? What can those first few steps look like for someone watching this video or listening to this conversation, and you think you might want to step into that role? What do those first couple of steps
Yeah,
look like?
yeah, sure. So we'll take two different approaches to it, right? The self advocate and the advocate who wants to work for an organization or something like that. So as far as self advocacy, educate yourself, read a book, watch a video. There are a lot of great Hollywood movies out there. Well, there are a few great Hollywood movies out there that really hone in on severe mental illnesses. There's a lot of great books out there, podcasts, things like that, and then hook up with National Alliance on Mental Illness (NAMI), and they can help you advocate for yourself. In turn, you can pay it forward, volunteer with NAMI. You can advocate for the masses. You can even get on social media, anonymous blogs, anonymous YouTube videos. There's a bunch of things out there. TikTok, right? TikTok videos. That's a new platform. Bottom line, though, simple, easy steps. Educate yourself on what you have going on. And when you're ready, share your story.
Love it. Really appreciate it, Dr. Carlos. You mentioned NAMI. They've outlined a few strategies and activities that you can employ if you're interested in getting involved. Can you walk us through some of them? The first is, I think, supporting someone who needs help. And that
Yeah.
sounds so basic, but for some people, they might have the heart to support someone, but they just don't know how. What can that look like?
Yeah. The easiest thing and the first step when you're trying to support someone, family, friend, coworker, whoever, is to listen. And listening is probably one of the most difficult things that we can do, but it's something that we can have practice in many times a day, many hours during the day. So when it comes to listening, a lot of times it's not about problem solving. I'm guilty of trying to listen to someone and I hear them talking about a problem and I'll sit here and go, "Oh, you know what? I see how to fix that. Do this, do this, do this, and your problems will go away." And many times that's not really what someone's looking for. Many times they just want to feel like, "Hey, I'm not alone." So I suggest often to people and myself just to validate the person's feelings. That must be so hard. I I feel what we've been through. I've been through that. I know how hard that is, and let them know that their feelings are totally okay.
One of the things you talk about listening before we go into the next question, I want to ask you, and just checking in to see if this technique is helpful there, Dr. Carlos. I learned years ago to ask the person I'm listening to, what do you need from me? Sometimes
Yeah.
they just want you to listen. They don't want to know what I think.
Yeah.
Other times they're asking for advice.
Yes.
Sometimes they're looking for a critique, a really
Yep.
a little more critical listening ear. So, in terms of being an advocate, is it helpful to say, tell me what you need, tell me what you want me to give you, so that I know that I'm giving you what you need?
Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. As my initials say, AMFT, Associate Marriage and Family Therapist. So I work with a lot of couples, and one of the things with the couples I work with, and when they're advocating for the sake of their relationship, whether it's dating or marriage, are the communication skills and listening. And a lot of times there are people who just want to problem solve, where the other person's like, "No, I don't want you to solve my problems. I just want you to listen to me." So that, going with what you said, Michael, is one of the best things you can do up front, so you can establish those boundaries and set yourself up for winning, not failing.
Wow, I love that. Set yourself up for winning, not failing. I'm going to hang on to that one, Dr. Carlos.